Well, thank you so much for inviting Gaudéamu스 to the 40th anniversary of the Korean Composers Association. My name is Marisa Tempo. I am head of development for Gaudéamu스 since 2011. It is an honor for me to be here and to celebrate with you. I cannot express how happy we are with this collaboration between the two organizations. Of course, Mr. Henk Heuvelmans truly regrets he cannot be here. Most of you probably know, due to health reasons, he wasn't allowed to fly. However, he would like to speak to you in person through a video. See if you see. I will start there. Oh. I have some technical issues with my presentation. I have to do this manually. The link doesn't work. So one moment, please. It's always, when you test it, it works, and when it's for real, it doesn't work. It's always the same. I'm so sorry. We have to skip the video from Henk, unfortunately, because I can't get the sound to work. In short, he truly regrets not being here, and he wishes you a very good festival, a very good symposium, and he really wants to be here next year. So, I'm here to tell you a bit more about the history of Gaudéamu스 as an organization for new music. Soon, in 2020, we celebrate our 75th anniversary. And in this speech, I will try to keep it very light and very practical, but I'm going to look back on the history of our organization, explain our role in the contemporary music in the international field, our policy, our philosophy, and how our role has changed over the years and how we function today. I will also touch on the presence of Korean composers in our part of the world and how young composers may get access to European festivals. So, what is Gaudéamu스? This is the print screen of our website, and you can see in big letters. What we promise is that Gaudéamu스 presents young music pioneers. In more words, we present, we organize, we stimulate, and we support the newest music by music pioneers. For over 70 years, Gaudéamu스 has worked hard to provide music pioneers worldwide with a stage and to bring music of tomorrow to curious music lovers around the world. At this moment, 75 years since its foundation, it's impossible to imagine an international world of new music without Gaudéamu스. Gaudéamu스 is located in Utrecht. It's the fourth city of the Netherlands. It has a very nice medieval center, and you can see here the iconic Dom Tower, and during the festival we have our flags throughout the city. This is a map of Holland. I forgot my pointer, but right in the middle see if this works. Yes, right in the middle here is Utrecht. And it was in a small village near Utrecht where Gaudéamus was founded, right immediately after the Second World War, in a small village just outside Utrecht called Bilthoven, in a villa that was called the House Gaudéamus, hence the name Gaudéamus. It's a beautiful story, actually. The house was built by a famous Dutch composer called Julius Röntgen in 1924. After he was retired, he wanted to have peace and quiet and write his music and have organized concerts. He passed away in 1932. The actual founding father of the Foundation Gaudéamus, as we know it today, is Walter Maas. Walter Maas, originally from Germany, fled right before the breakout of the Second World War to the Netherlands. And he came to Bilthoven, to Gaudéamus, the House Gaudéamus, originally as a tenant. So he rented a room and stayed there. A couple of years later, he took over the pension that was situated in the villa, and only rented out the rooms to Jewish refugees. During the war, Walter Maas, who was from Jewish descent himself, had to hide from the German soldiers, and he hid in this villa, in a secret room somewhere under the roof. After the war, when all was right and well, Walter Maas had survived the war, and he felt very grateful to Holland and its inhabitants. And he thought of, what can I do in return? And since it was a house of music, a composer's house from origin, he decided to organize a concert. And right after, in November 1945, the very first concert organized by Walter Maas, by Gaudéamus, in this villa took place. And this was the start of many more concerts, festivals, courses, etc., to what Gaudéamus is today. Here you see an old picture right after the founding of Gaudéamus. Here you see Walter Maas. The rest are Dutch composers, probably not very well known to you, and I guess some policy makers, and a lot of writers also were present at the villa. And right after the war, there was no infrastructure for music. And Gaudéamus was the only organization for new music. It was more or less I guess you call it an association, so there were members who were also composers, and there was no financial support. It was up until the 70s, I believe, that Walter Maas ran this organization voluntarily. And his income he got out of renting out rooms in the Villa Gaudéamus, which he by then was able to buy himself, so it was his property. Gradually, as of the 70s, with increasing help from the government, Gaudéamus became very important for the development of new music life, and always, since early 1950s, had an international perspective. This is one of the music weeks that I think it was approximately the 1960s. That was typical how it looked then. So there was a lot of people gathering at the house, exchanging ideas, giving concerts, getting courses. There were like the upcoming composers came, and more famous composers were invited to teach. So, well, officially, in 1947, the foundation was founded. The focus of the organization then is very similar, or maybe the same as the focus we have today. In the meantime, it has shifted a little, but the focus is and was to support young composers. We organize a festival and a competition, but these are mainly tools to give that support. with these tools, we create opportunities and exchange of experiences and ideas. From the beginning, many young composers came to the house at the start of their careers, and other famous composers were invited to teach or have their works performed. Amongst those composers who started their early careers is Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. György Ligeti was invited and gave many courses. Brian Ferneyhough, who won the award in 1968, if I'm not mistaken. This was a young Mr. Ferneyhough. Maybe most of you know him like this. Tan Dun and Unsuk Jin, who won the Gaudí Award in 1985. In 2 days, we have an exchange concert with featured works by Art Strootman, who won the Gaudí Award last year. Actually, Art Strootman was it's one of the few Dutch winners of the prize. The one before Art Strootman was the Dutch, in Holland, very famous composer Michel van der Aa, who won the prize in 1999. I'm not sure if you know Michel van der Aa. His works are very interdisciplinary, and he has also studied film. So film plays a very important role in his music and his pieces. A big percentage of the works on the program of Gaudí are first performances, world premieres. This, of course, is one of the problems in contemporary music. There are more first performances than second or third performances, and this can be a problem because it has to take, in our opinion, several performances before a work is recognized as a good work, or perhaps a masterpiece. If it's alright with you, I would like to dedicate a part of my talk to one particular world premiere at Gaudí, which caused chaos, riot, protest, was very controversial. It certainly did not create a feeling during the premiere that this was going to be one of the iconic pieces in the history of contemporary music. So I have a little pop quiz. If I show this picture, is there anyone here who can really say, I know which work this is? I'm very curious. Yes, indeed. This is another picture in case you hadn't guessed yet, but indeed, it's Poème symphonique by György Ligeti. A piece for 100 metronomes. It was actually commissioned by Gaudí and had its world premiere in 1963. It was the final concert of the Music Week. It took place in a very special location, in the town hall of Hilversum, and some very important people were there. The mayor and the architect of the town hall, which was a very famous architect. And the premiere was going to be broadcast on a national television. But what happened was quite unexpected. The audience had anticipated a world premiere and were prepared to see a concert with musicians, an ensemble. But what they got was a stage with 100 metronomes. Ligeti and I believe 6 or 8 musicians came on stage. And there was a bit of confusion. What was this? Some people were laughing. Some people were walking away. What they saw was Ligeti giving a signal, and the musicians started winding up the metronomes, and there was an excruciating silence. Maybe 2 minutes, but with a long silence. People were getting a bit anxious. On the other end, Ligeti gave another signal, and they started all the metronomes. And the musicians went behind the curtains. Some people actually started shouting. The story is people were yelling boo, and people didn't like it. The next day, Ligeti and Walter Maas were sitting in Villa Gaudéamus because they knew the piece was going to be broadcast. When they turned on the television, there was no concert but a football match. Now I'm going to try to show the video of Bohème Symphony, because the very special thing is, we always thought the footage was lost, that too bad the television didn't broadcast it and they destroyed it. But this year, in the National Television Archives, we tried to search for it, and we always search for Ligeti, Bohème Symphony. And then all of a sudden, we said, well, it was commissioned by Gaudéamus and it was premiered at Gaudéamus. Maybe you should try to search for Gaudéamus. And there it was. So I hope, if all goes well and technique doesn't fail, I can show you quite a scoop, for the first time outside of Holland, a bit of the footage of the premiere of Ligeti. Bear with me one second. Well, as you can see, probably hear, the sound doesn't work, but maybe it does give an image of what it looked like. You can see the musicians coming on stage. And here's Mr. Ligeti himself. And on his signal, very well choreographed, they start winding up the metronomes. I'm going to try the sound of my laptop. Maybe it's better than nothing. I'm going to try it. Well, the excruciating silence is also here now. But I think we get an image, and I'm happy to share this footage with you so you can look at it and with sound. It's a brilliant choreographed piece, and in the end, Georgi Ligeti himself, I think the piece takes about 12 minutes, and then he himself gets on stage, and in German, but actually it's kind of a stand-up comedy kind of program note he reads out aloud. And as you can imagine, we were very much surprised and very happy that we found this footage. It also gives a very good image of new music and how controversial it could be in the 60s. But also, it was very controversial, but you can also see, for us, in the 60s people were maybe angry, but still very polite. Nowadays, I guess people would really get out of the hole and be angry. And this footage is not so bad as how it is written about. With programming this piece, giving the composer a complete carte blanche, it shows that sometimes simply we have to trust and follow the composer in his or her passion to do something entirely new. But I also like to take this as an example for the diversity in styles we like to program at Gaudéamu스. Years after the premiere of Poème Symphonique, several performances of that work have taken place, as you can see, in many different ways. As you can see here, we recently have specialized in performing the piece ourselves at Gaudéamu스. We have our own musicians and perform this piece. This is on different locations. That's what we like to do. We take the music out of the concert hall and place. This is in a shopping center. And also, we organized a Ligeti Festival back in the 80s, where Mr. Ligeti himself was present to wind up the metronomes. And nice to know, maybe, for a long time, Mr. Henk Heuvelmans himself was, if someone in Holland wanted to do something with his work or wanted to invite Ligeti, they called Henk Heuvelmans because his understanding with Ligeti was very, very good. He could call him and he would come. Well, this is one of the examples, but there are, of course, maybe in Korean history, music history, also a lot of more examples of this kind of controversy. The same happened, for example, with the first performance of a string quartet by Brian Ferneyhough, now one of the bigger names of contemporary music, especially of the 20th century. He was more or less kicked out of Britain. Nobody wanted his music to start with. It was far too difficult to play it. But then he won the Gaudéamu스 Award in 1968, which was a breakthrough for him. Now I would like to focus a little bit on electronic music in the Netherlands. Gaudéamu스 played a very important and big role in the development of electronic music, and I have a nice story to tell about that as well. It started a bit in the 1950s, also because of technique. Producers such as Philips and Sony started to make equipment with which people could make electronic music. And in 1958, the big World Expo was organized in Brussels, the capital of Belgium. And Philips was there with a very special building in which they wanted to show their latest developments in equipment for sound. They asked a famous architect, Le Corbusier, and Janus Xenakis to design this pavilion. And Edgar Varese made a multi-channel composition for 400 speakers that would sound in this pavilion, and that piece is called Poème électronique. Here you can see the man with the hat working on the pavilion. That's Le Corbusier, and this is Xenakis. At Philips, actually, there already was a research laboratory. There was already an electronic music studio since 1956. Here, there was a famous Dutch composer called Dick Rijmakers. He was also given a carte blanche by Philips to make quote-unquote popular electronics. And in this studio, he made several compositions for Dutch TV commercials. Here you see Dick Rijmakers, and he produced many of his compositions under the name of Kid Baltan, which was an anagram for the name of the studio. I'm gonna skip this little piece of sound because that has no sound. And here you see Edgar Varese working on his poem Electronique. So Dick Rijmakers had his own studio, and for Varese and Le Corbusier, they actually just made a small corner in the factory of Philips where they could build their pavilion and could work on their music. There you can see the little sound studio, and on the left here you see the big pieces of the pavilion. Here you see the mock-up. Here again a picture of Varese working. A bit earlier in 1957, Walter Maas, the founder of Gaudéamu스, organized several meetings and a concert by the composers who were active in electronic music in Germany. Again, Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. He organized a meeting with Dutch composers such as Ton de Leeuw, but also Varese, who happened to be around working in the factory of Philips on his poem Electronique. Dutch newspapers published several articles on this collaboration with a picture of these three composers. In present day, we would now call this fake news because we have the original picture. There you see Mr. Walter Maas. Without Walter Maas, this meeting would not have taken place. It was clear that there was great interest in learning more about electronic music and having the possibility to create that kind of music. But the Philips studio was not an open studio, so Walter Maas organized a studio, electronic music studio, in the garden, in the little garden house of Villa Gaudéamu스. And gradually more electronic studios, also private-owned studios. One was started by a famous Dutch composer and one of the grandfathers of electronic music, Ton Brunel. Actually, this studio was literally around the corner of our Gaudéamu스 office right now. And this is Jan Boerman, one of the other founding fathers, of grandfathers of electronic music. Gradually, there were more studios opened. So the studio of Gaudéamu스, less and less composers came there, and they came to, for example, to Utrecht, to the Institute of Sonology, and later also to the Royal Conservatory in The Hague. But Gaudéamu스 always took care of the concerts in which those works were performed. And we also hosted a society that produced CDs with electronic works. We had a concert series with the Acousmonium, which was from the French studio, GRM. For us it's difficult to imagine now, but this was a concert, so a stage full with speakers. This was supposed to be like an orchestra of different kinds of loudspeakers. And more recently, we had The Beast, Birmingham Electroacoustic Sound Theatre, also a stage full with speakers. And in Utrecht we organized in a church the wave field synthesis, an installation with 200 loudspeakers. And as proof that at Gaudéamu스 this kind of music was treated at the same level as music for string quartets or orchestra, in 2006 the Gaudéamu스 Award was given to Gabriel Bayuk for his electronic work, Res Extensa. And just 2 years ago we hosted the ICMC 2016, the International Computer Music Conference, which last year was hosted here in South Korea. So, taking this, it may be nice to have a look at some Korean composers who were featured at Gaudéamu스 Muziekweek. To start with, of course, Umzug Chin. That goes back a long way, because in 1959 Isang Yoon was programmed, a year after his first performance in Europe. And again, in 1969, that was the year he came out of prison. And in 1985, Henk Heuvelmans himself was able to work with him personally. One of his students, Suki Kang, was often at Gaudéamu스, and in 1989 he gave a lecture about his work and gave an overview of new music in South Korea, including a full concert with Korean works. An important year was 1985, when one of Suki Kang's students, Umzug Chin, won the Gaudéamu스 Award for her work Spectra for 3 violoncellos. She was studying with the Ligeti in Germany at that moment, and the award had great impact on her career in Europe. Almost each year, several young composers are presented. I only name a few in random order. It's Youngwoo Yim, Songkun Kim, and Surang Yong. And of course, this year we had 2 composers in collaboration with the Korean Composers Association. One of the things we do, we find very important, is to have as many recordings, video and audio. I can't let you hear it, but we also have some recordings of the works that we presented in collaboration with the Korean Composers Association. Winning the Gaudéamu스 Award means a lot to young composers. They get a lot of attention, but for us, as I say, it's not the most, it's a tool. It's a way of getting young composers in the spotlight. But this is only a part of the festival. The rest of the program consists of new works commissioned by Gaudéamu스, new international co-productions, invited soloists, ensembles. Long story short, we cover a very broad spectrum of styles. Cultural background, geography, gender, etc., etc. In the past, this hasn't always been the policy, because we let juries and committees decide the program. Because that led to maybe a bit abstract music, this has given new music maybe, or Gaudéamu스 in Holland, a bit of a bad image. And ever since Henk Heuvelmans became our director, it has been his mission to change this image. And I'm very glad to be able to say that since a couple of years we really have changed this image, and people have been associating Gaudéamu스 more with interesting new experiences, new sounds, new performances, new collaborations, interdisciplinary works, instead of difficult, abstract music for a very, very small number of people who are interested. So our policy is to be as open to composers as possible. And to illustrate that, I wanted to show you this trailer, but I am afraid I'm gonna try one last try. See if the sound works. But again, all these videos, you can watch them yourself on our YouTube channel. We have, I believe, more than 100 videos. Not only this is the trailer of 2018. You can also watch the after movie of 2018. We have more than 30 concert registrations. Yes, thank you. 2 minutes left, I hear. I'll be very quick. So please go to our YouTube or Facebook or our website, and you can see the diversity that we present yourself. Just one small good example of such music pioneer we like to present is Art Strootman. Come to his concert. Will be on Thursday evening. A true interdisciplinary musician, composer, performer. I'm not going to show you a lot of pictures. I won't say too much of what we present. This is a poster in 1955. We changed that a little. We now present very colorful, fresh images that makes people curious. That's the idea behind it. We want to surprise people. And this one of this year. This is our main festival center, a very big concert hall, newly built in 2014, Tivoli Vredenburg. We have a lot of concerts there. This is the big hall. We also present concerts in a gallery. We try to find as much different locations as possible, all to enhance the music. So the best location that fits the music, for the acoustics or maybe the number of people, etc. We also go to churches. This is an old factory hall. This is like the jazz stage of Tivoli Vredenburg. But we also go outside if it's possible, if it's good for the music. And even more churches, or maybe a bit more rocky music on stage, or in the center and the audience is standing around it. Electric guitar music in a library. This is a special project with the Dome Tower, with the bells in the Dome Tower. Performance, etc. Just to give you an image, sound installations, of course, just to give you an image of the diversity, what we produce. And as you can see, new music is not only appreciated by older people, but also simply by people who are interested, or even young children. I know I have a little time. I just want to say a little bit more about what really has changed the last couple of years, is that audience has become much more important than in the first decades. In the first decades, the most important element was to bring composers together, organize workshops, lectures, concerts, often for a small audience. And for a long time, the government, that's this fund, was our main supporter. So the development of the arts had priority. Today, however, we have to find lots and lots of different private funds. I can show you the next slide. These are all our partners' funds. So nowadays we do still have a lot of work, of course, artistically, but we also have a lot of work lobbying and administrating all these different partnerships and private funds and etc. And one of the demands the private funds have is they want you to have a lot of impact, which means a bigger audience. Luckily, since 2011, our number of audience has quadrupled, but still we have a hard time, or make a lot of effort in telling the story to all the funds that how important this music is, and that although we know how to get a bigger audience, it still is important music for a niche, but within that niche, we are important. So a picture like this representing all the logos of financial supporters. This also shows that this also asks from the maker, the composer and the musician a more business mindset, more of an entrepreneur, more entrepreneurship. So, in that, just to conclude, we are not only busy helping composers in their career, we also help the audience to understand and appreciate this music by giving them lectures, workshops on a different level. So we also have workshops for composers, but for audience more of a guide to new music. In this way we want to get their attention, and because that's our philosophy now. If you tell people what they're gonna hear and explain, and that's our unique selling point. You can have the composer present, people can touch him or her, ask questions, or maybe have a drink afterwards. People tend to appreciate their work more. So that's our philosophy. And of course I had a lot of tips available, but I guess the Q&A is also a good moment. If there's questions, please ask. If you want tips on how to get your work out there in Europe or at Gaudéamu스, feel free to ask. And consider this also an open invitation to come to our festival next year. We can't offer you all travel and expense, but we can offer you a free festival pass if you would like to come and taste the atmosphere and see what we present at our festival. Thank you for your attention.